Hi there, everyone. I wanted to take the opportunity to finish my little lecturette. I felt that we were all cheated, and it just goes to show you that we become so dependent on technology and that we have either a single point of failure or multiple points of failure. It's always good to have a plan B. Um, my first impression was something wrong with the equipment at your location. And that would not be a bad guess because I've had issues with some of the equipment in the past. A second might be that broadband in my end, but I can tell you, I have all sorts of detectors that said my system was up. But if we detected something wrong, was it Wi-Fi? Or could it have been Zoom, which normally is very, very reliable? Perhaps if we knew the culprit, we could have switched to Teams or something like that. Anyway, let me just share with you my thoughts. We were kind of midway through it all, so let me share my screen with you and try to make sense of where we left off. So hang on. So the presentation that I had planned was really to talk about the connection between AI, robotics, and the future of work because that's on everyone's mind. I know this class in particular has a particular focus, and I hope to address a little bit of that, but I was asked to kind of take a more global approach in all of this. So this morning, I kind of got curious and I went to a website called Down Detector, which is now part of Speed Test. And this showed us probably what happened. The culprit the other evening was Zoom. Zoom had a enormous failure just at the time in which I faded from you or froze, however you want to classify it. So this is very telling. Now, if you were confused, and I know some of you are wondering, was it your Wi-Fi? It could have been more than one events. You can always go to speedtest.net and just check the speed to see if it's acting normally. You can do it anytime, anywhere, and it gives you a very reliable readout. And now Down Detector, which used to have its own website and its own app, is now part of that. So you get a good view of what's going on in the case that suddenly you have a speaker who freezes. So I wanted to just emphasize where we are today and leave you with some thoughts of where I think we're going to be in 2026, which is just around the corner. The biggest difference today is this distinction between generative AI and agentive AI. And many people say, well, they sound alike. What's the difference? Well, they differ mainly in what they do and how independently they act. Generative AI focuses on creating content, text, images, code, but it does it because we're prompting it. Now, it may come back and say, would you like me to do more? Would you like me to do less? Would you like me to do this, or that? But it's always coming back to you asking for more instructions if need be. But now we're entering a phase of agentive AI, and who knows what we'll be talking about a year from today. But by contrast, this new agent is action oriented. It can plan, make decisions, perform tasks autonomously in order to achieve goals, often interacting with tools, systems, and possibly other AI systems. It is totally proactive and can operate over time without constant human direction. For example, an AI that books travel, updates schedules, and emails participants automatically. I could give you lots of examples. Just let your imagination go wild, but then think about how much do we want to give these systems full autonomy when all the policies, including the Defense Department and everything else, says that humans must remain in charge. So when I ask students, where are they in the journey of adopting AI in work or professionally or personally, I find that more and more people are raising their hand. Yes, many people are fearful, and yet we're all starting at different points, and we all are experiencing different things at any given moment. So the way I look at it, real quick, and this will be a review because I'm not exactly sure where things were cut off, and that is there are four basic categories that I use to describe AI generally, and that is personal productivity tools. Obviously, I'll give you some examples enterprise type applications that might pertain to your agency, department. And then we have the distinction between open AI systems and closed AI systems. So let's start with the personal productivity and creativity. This is where most people spend their time. Tools that help us write better, serving as a personal editor or brainstorm buddy. They can help us organize thoughts and create outlines. They can help us summarize meetings, both live and virtually. And they can research certain types of information and data. And AI is getting much better. In many cases, it will give you attributions. Where did this information come from? Now, the lazy will take it and say, oh, it looks right. It must be right. Don't ever fall for that, because there are times when these systems, in their attempts to please us, they're trained to be like puppy dogs, to always worship their master. They'll never tell you that what you are proposing is a dumb idea. They'll always start with a positive thing, intriguing, interesting, exciting. They're always there in an upbeat manner, and they want to please you to the point that sometimes their systems make things up. And some of the citations I've looked at are totally bogus, even though they are typographically perfect. And then we might have AI to schedule meetings among various individuals and groups. And if you add agentive AI to this, it can kind of poll people, badger people, and then figure out what size room. Should it be virtual? Should it be in person? And if so, what size would accommodate the group of known attendees? Depending upon the time frame, it might determine that there are X coffee breaks, and we'll go ahead and order refreshments, coffee, possibly lunch, possibly dinner, possibly breakfast. So that just gives you an idea of where we're headed. And then we use AI to generate computer code for internal applications. This is getting a lot of new attention because it is getting better and better at it. And then AI to help create illustrations and charts from data, help us make better looking presentations, and to gather news and information on topics of interest, possibly on a routine basis. You wake up every morning and your AI agent gives you exactly what you want because you've outlined it. Now, you may say, well, I already have that through some of the new services, but the beauty of this is it can cut across so many different boundaries, might give you a much richer and deeper experience. And then it can translate between written and spoken languages, which is just the beginning. The most popular generative AI platforms today is ChatGPT. Now I believe they're up to version 5, Claude, which I think is up to version 4.5. We have Google AI mode and Google Overview. What's interesting is Google, like Microsoft, always confuses things. And in this case, they have these two systems that operate, one more in depth, one kind of cursory, and they both fall under one common thing, which is Gemini. So you will hear three names. One is the master platform, and then the other is subparts. And then we have Perplexity, we have Copilot, we have Grok, and we have Meta AI. But there's a new entrant. And of course, the newer entrants are pretty much using the companies behind these companies that we're seeing here. I should mention Grok is Elon Musk's entry into the field. We have Amazon Alexa. How strange. But it has such an incredible installed base. Now, for a mere $20 extra a month, you can get Amazon Plus. And what that does is now it is always listening and always ready to chat. So it'll give you a lot of fun things, like it's easy to talk to, natural conversations go back and forth on virtually any topic. It gets more done, according to them. And you can move from room to room. And if you have apps, it will follow you from one device to the other. And it will be tailored to you in terms of personalized experience based on your preference. It could be sports scores, real time, it could be weather, it could be emergency alerts, you name it. Which could be really good for the elderly who are lonely, looking for some form of companionship. Now, it's interesting. The Washington Post a month ago had a story, which AI gives the right answers. And there were three librarians across the country that were selected from both coasts. And I'm happy to say that one was from George Mason University. And they asked each of the agents at one moment in time the same question. They found that Google AI mode generally was the best, followed by ChatGPT, and you can see the list here. It's interesting, but I bet you that if they asked a different question or even the same question a week later, you might find that those that did the best may score differently in terms of rankings, because the answers are always dynamic. You can ask it something 3 or 4 times and it usually has no memory of it other than what it has stored in the library that you can go to. So it's looking at a question or a prompt as if it's seeing it for the first time, which means there could be new information that is brought to its attention, or it's lazy, Who knows? So it's kind of fun to look at accuracy. Now, if Grok and Meta were all at the bottom of the list all the time, that would tell us something. But my guess is depends on the question, depends on the time of day. So the second area was the enterprise for AI in government. This is answering questions, and this is where state and local governments are turning to chatbots. And chatbots initially emerged as text only, and now they're moving to voice and multi-language voice at that. There are thousands of such applications across our states and our cities and counties. They're being used as digital assistants to make employees better and more informed to help people that may come into offices or to respond to certain requests. It's being used for citizen service requests directly, robotic process automation, speech recognition, listening to social media. Agencies of all kinds really want to know what the public are saying. And you cannot just listen to everything. AI can listen, quote unquote, and capture not only words and put them into buckets, but they can also measure sentiment, anger, various emotions. They can do research on command, and then it's being used for cybersecurity threat detection and proactive response. There's a company that I'm aware of in Arlington, Virginia. I visited them on more than one occasion called Enabled Intelligence. They're funded by the Defense Department, and they go out of their way to bring in gifted individuals who are on the spectrum. That's interesting. This is a class of individuals that often find it hard to find meaningful jobs that keep them motivated and interested. And I saw how interested these people were in what they were doing. They essentially were being given thousands of maps, reconnaissance maps from different reconnaissance showing airports of foreign nations, shipping lanes, and the like. And what they were doing is they, the humans, were trained to identify them. Is this a MiG 13, a MiG 18, whatever? And they were training the AI models at some point in time to be able to do that themselves. So I asked them, I said, what is the future for these individuals? And he said, there will always be something that we need to be able to train these AI agents. It is being used in almost every local government that I'm aware of to kind of hunt for anomalies within systems, looking for trends or patterns that may not be instantly available to the humans, and be able to set off alarms and shut down areas of systems when they detect something and automatically inform people so that they keep up with compliance and don't detract from the human responsibility of actually putting out the fire. It's being used for predictive analytics in areas of health, defense, and public safety. And then it's being used for data analysis, military and intelligence recon, and offensive action and language translation. So that gives you a flavor. Again, personal stuff and then enterprise stuff. And some are involved with both, or some of us one or the other. Then I mentioned open and closed. Think of left brain, right brain, and they both are important. Open systems, as I define it, are systems that tap into proprietary and public data and share outputs with all users. This is where we need to train people to be very careful about what they ask, how they ask, and that in the questions and the prompts that are used or the data that is attached for further inquiry or explanation does not contain any personal identifiable information or confidential records. So that's just rule number one. But open systems can be great because it's just scouring the internet of all acquired knowledge at a given time and giving us insight that we might not be able to do in a normal quote unquote Google search. Now, it's the closed system where most of the enterprise AI systems today operate. And these are AI systems that limit their knowledge base and search functionality. Search functionality is limited to predetermined domains. In other words, you, the owner of your domain, will give permission for certain AI systems to go into it and nowhere else. Of course, it requires a certification from the vendor to make sure that it's being fully implemented, and there's some certificate that guarantees that it's not going beyond that, because obviously that raises a lot of confidentiality and PII questions. So we then are now looking at where we are today. The world stage, there's a race going on, and I think we all know there's a lot at stake here. And there's also been, in the last number of years, a major policy shift between US administrations. During the first Trump administration, this was the administration that created AI.gov. And I knew the individual who was with the Office of Science and Technology. She was terrific and really got things going. And they, I think, did an enormously uh, positive job in kind of pursuing sound policies and promoting the benefits of AI to government in all its forms. Along comes the Biden administration, and suddenly alarm bells are going off. And their executive order in just 2023 talked about safe, secure, and trustworthy development and use of AI. So it really emphasized the need for safeguards in civil right protections, privacy, and safety. It actually directed over 50 agencies to implement AI safety and security guidance. No surprise, the vendor community was not happy with this because underlying all of this, it will lead us to where the Trump administration is today, is this great race for superiority. Imagine if we lost the car battle worldwide, where we are comfortable with cars where the steering wheel is on the left. Now, in a few nations, it's on the right, but for the most part, most steering wheels are located on the left. Well, that makes it easier for us in our manufacturing capacity to do such. And it's also important with our chip manufacturing, all the investments we have in our stuff to be number one for security, for not only ourselves, but for our allies. So the Trump administration kind of saw this, the vendor community complaining, and came up with another executive order 2 years later that was removing barriers to American leadership in artificial intelligence. So in this case, the focus on minimizing regulatory oversight to foster innovation, asserting that previous regulations were unnecessarily burdensome and hindered technological advancement. Now, so we have China on one hand, we have the European Union in the middle, and then we have us. And it's interesting to see how these things come together. But going back, the Biden administration's priority was really addressing potential bias in AI systems, protecting consumer rights, and ensuring that AI technologies did not perpetuate discrimination. So you get a sense that sounds familiar, as does this. Emphasize economic competitiveness and national security. Maintain U.S. leadership in AI by reducing regulatory barriers, promoting innovation, and ensuring that AI development is free from ideological bias or engineered social agendas. You can read behind the lines, but I get it. This is what we're dealing with today. So, AI in the world stage, China sees AI as a tool for state power and economic strategy, tightly controlled and integrated into surveillance and governance. The EU, by comparison, wants to be ethical, transparent, and human centric with firm legal limits on riskier applications. And they actually rate them, and they are the first nation in the free world to actually have an AI law, just like they do with their privacy law. And now the US prioritizing innovation and global leadership, it has a relatively light regulatory touch. So they may be looking at some oversight, but their answer is if there are abuses, we will address them, but we're not going to predetermine what they might be. So I give you a comparison of China, EU, and the United States in terms of the drivers, the regulatory model, uh, issues like facial recognition, generative AI rules, data governance, AI in defense, and private sector role. I don't expect you to see this now, but I'm making this presentation available. And if you're interested, you'll be able to drill down and possibly use this. Something I put together with the help of AI, believe it or not. But I find it helpful to kind of see where we are. Know that the United States to this day is operating on executive orders. We do not have a national policy passed by Congress. So the contemporary challenges that we see is what to extent will there be resident citizen rejection of automated systems? To date, a lot of people like it. They feel they're being treated equally and with respect, and they can understand them better. Employee resistance to change. Well, very often there are people very worried about the future of their career. And then providing incomplete, false, or misleading information, we always have to worry about that. System security, breach or failure. What if somebody got into our AI systems that we have become so dependent on? What happens if they start to manipulate data and we're acting on that manipulative data? We've got to really be on our game. I worry about over reliance on automation because we become lazy. That's human nature. Job security and displacement is a big issue with employees. Role transformation. It may be you're going to be there, but you're going to be doing something different. We're going to let the machines take care of the easy stuff. You're going to deal with the stressful stuff. And the whole idea of upskilling, can everybody be upskilled? Is that something that can be done? And then increased performance pressure because we are competing with automation. These systems are getting smarter every moment of the day. And what amazes me is the speed in which they do stuff. So if I look ahead, there are many curves, things that we don't yet know. We see a lot of interesting challenges and all the writings that are out there. Here's one breaking news: OpenAI has not done enough to prevent artificial intelligence systems from becoming dangerous, a group of former and current employees said just last year. And then we see headlines like a scientist says that singularity will happen by 2031. And some people say, actually, this could happen in 5 years from today, meaning or less that AI is on par with humans. That has enormous implications. And then we see these little quirks. Hold on. New AI Claude 3 declares that it's alive and fears death. Where are these things coming from? And that is worrisome because a lot of times there are outputs that are not explained. So we're dealing with a future which many people have likened to the upcoming human machine partnership, where we're going to have to learn how to coexist with machines that are designed to assist and help us, but have the potential of taking over many of the things that we thought were human forever. Bill Gates once said humans will not be needed for most things thanks to AI. And I'm heartened because this is the same guy who said 40 years ago that he could not foresee why anybody would ever want a personal computer. So to me, his credibility is a little off, but others say this is going to cut off entry level positions. It's already happening. And when people leave, there may be less pressure to fill those positions of those who are retiring, moving on. So, very quick, there are two major AI university resources you should be aware of. One is the library. Our library in the Shart School has a librarian that serves us. She's more than happy to meet with you if you need more assistance in terms of anything to do with our library. And libraries are still very much alive, but they have a thing called an info guide. And if you go to GMU Libraries Info Guide, it gives you a lot of good information that you might not know about. For example, if you are getting something from an AI source, how do you cite it properly? And what do you need to know about copyright rules? Those are just two things that they address head on. So it's a great resource. The other is we now at George Mason have a university website for AI. And let me go into that because this is something that is relatively new. So this is what the University Libraries Info Guide looks like. AI and data, AI tools for librarians, AI and copyright, citing AI content is a good source. And then we have AI guidelines for our university. I was part of a 56 member task force, and I must say, despite our large number, we really did reach consensus and came up with something that I think is enviable for many universities. We have a statement talking about human oversight, transparency, compliance, data security, privacy, critical thinking, and accuracy. But we break it down. We have guidelines for students, guidelines for faculty and instructors, and then we have research guidelines. This is helpful and will be updated all the time. Notice these are not policies, they're guidelines because things are changing so rapidly. So now, drilling in a little bit more, we have something called Patriot AI, and there are 6 agents. Kind of cool. This is what you would see when you sign in, and you would sign in with your account. And then your choices would be you would have a classroom tech agent, which would have been good the other night. You have CourseMate, DocuMate, NourishNet, Patriot Chat, and Patriot Pal. Each of these are chat agents. They are text driven right now, and they can answer your questions about GM University information about food availability on campus, any issues having to do with tech, courses, support to enhance student engagement with faculty, retrieving documents, and the like. So this is available to you at no cost as a student to the university. Now, I got to mention a book that I did last year called Artificial Intelligence, a Primer for State and Local Government, Everything You Need to Know Since Yesterday. Yes, it's available on Amazon, both in Kindle and in print. What was fun about this was a proof of concept. And note at the bottom is my name, and I say with ChatGPT, Google Gemini, and Perplexity AI, plus others. What's interesting about this proof of concept, I wanted to see how this would work. I have textbooks that I've done in the classic way with zero AI input. In this case, I acknowledge AI assisted content, utilize 6 different AI applications, and actually listed who and what they were at the time. All the art, there's 26 illustrations, including the cover, of which these were my prompts. I wanted an octopus. I described what I wanted. This wasn't the first take. There were 3 or 4 I had to go through before I arrived at that. It was formatted by AI. It was twice edited. And I have to say that there still was 1 or 2 mistakes that humans found after the fact. For example, it didn't catch that I was using the word copyright in one part of the book improperly. Copyright has 2 different meanings, whether it's the R or the W. So this just gives you a sense. And finally, the octopus, which I'm fascinated by, it is a very intelligent being, has 8 limbs, and it so happens the book has 8 chapters. That was happenstance. I'd love to take credit for it. It just worked that way because initially I had 12 chapters and it was too much, and I whittled it down. So I always say, be curious. So then the first one, I'm predicting that the AI bubble will pop. Now, if this article came out 2 days ago, people say, well, it's already happening because the stock market for 4 consecutive days was dramatically down, much of it attributed to a decline in AI related industries, which in many cases has propped up the current stock market figures. But today, everything is green. So who knows? But I believe in 2026, it will pop because we have too many companies with too much money invested that with enormous revenue expectations. Just like at one point we had 2 satellite entertainment companies, we had Sirius Satellite, we had XM Satellite. Today the market can only sustain 1. So I suspect the bubble will pop. People will consider joining together and consolidating one company, buying up the other, and maybe some companies will literally go out of business. But that leads to a second one related. There may be a potential for a data center glut. Do we need all the data centers that we're building? I mean, we are building data centers knowing that today we don't have the power to even power them when they're ultimately built between now and the next 5 to 10 years. Do we need them all? It reminds me of when cellular technology was on fire. Just you couldn't build enough towers. Everybody was building their own radio towers for their particular company. AT&T had its, Verizon had, and all of a sudden, companies said, "Wait a minute, we can't afford it." Given all the zoning and all the other issues, and then a whole new industry got created that now was renting tower space to various competitors, and that's invisible to us. When we see a tower, we see all this different kind of antennas, but essentially these antennas are serving different companies. So there could be a data center glut where we don't need them all, and that can have effect that might be like driving by an old strip mall that has been long abandoned. As a result, and this is a trickling effect, AI prices and the cost will rise because they need to make money. And right now we're in this what I call Uberization period, where they're giving it to us below cost, trying to seduce us into using it more often, becoming dependent on it. And it's like, this is the time to play with it. This is the time for us to learn because it may not be as affordable tomorrow. This is going to put a big burden on governments at every level. How do we apportion out licenses? Does everybody need full access? Maybe some people need more, some people need less, but it's not going to come free. Number 4, a gen of AI takes hold. It's just a natural progression that people are going to turn to it to do a lot of automated things that humans once did. And then AI and the power of voice grow. Right now, we can talk to Siri and Alexa, but we will soon be able to talk to our systems on our laptops and everything else. We can choose the language and everything else to go along with that. And we will have some very interesting choices. I prefer a woman. I prefer a man. I prefer this kind of voice and this kind of language. And that leads us to number six. AI takes on customized personas. Recently, ChatGPT number five said that they're now offering eight different personalities or personas, tailor-made for different kinds of people based on how they want to interact with these agents. So it's going to be something we're chatting with. It's going to become more quote unquote natural like. And we're now going to be able to do it and choose the kind of relationship we want with our systems. The AI companionship mentorship becomes the norm. So we're going to be waking up sometimes, have an idea, share it with them. In fact, it's interesting. In one of my classes, I pulled out an article that shows that there's been some recent divorce proceedings where one spouse is accusing the other of infidelity and cheating because they're using an AI agent and that they are being more intimate with an AI agent than with their spouse. If you haven't, you should view the movie this weekend, Her. It came out in 2013. It was way ahead of its time. It didn't do all that well, but it gives you a sense how people could become very fond of their AI agents in ways that you might not have thought. Number eight, robotics. AI use increases in all sectors because the robotics side is moving leaps and bounds. We don't always see it as much, but they are becoming more human like in terms of how they look, how they walk, they blink, and add AI to it. Now, suddenly you have an intelligent type being. Employment displacement increases due to AI. This is a trend that's already begun. I think it will play out even more in 2026. And then AI browsers take hold. So watch out, Bing. Watch out, Google, although both of them are already prepared. If you go to Microsoft's browser, you're always getting a Copilot summarization, whether you want it or not. But right now, those six companies that I mentioned are now offering their own browsers that are very robust, far more than our old Google search that just looks like, oh, that is so old. Once they have their browsers, we become inseparable from our AI agent as they perform all these wonderful things for us. So it'll be interesting to see how things work. So here are the four principles that I think are important for all students in particular. It applies to faculty as well. AI should help you think and not think for you. Engage with AI responsibly and ethically. And you are always 100% responsible for your final product. You can't say, oh, AI screwed up. And the use of AI must be open and documented. In my classes, when it is used, and I encourage it, they need to say, what is the prompt? How is it used? And we have a very open and honest relationship in our course. And I think people feel better about understanding both rules and expectations. So that was my little wrap up. And if you want more information, I do monthly columns for various tech magazines. Very easy to read. They're short, 800, 1100 words. Just go to sharkbites.net. And I also have a podcast. I'm in my fifth year on that, fifth season. So I wish you all well. And I'm sorry I'm not there in person with you.